All right, John, you made a comment about the low-code application platforms. Makes it easier to produce apps, but yet there are too many apps on the enterprise desktop. But in Krista, it's a low-code app platform, right?
Yeah. It's a call me out on this, right? So I say low-code app platforms are, in most cases, in my view, not going in the right direction for enterprise IT. Krista is a nothing like code app platform. What gives? Okay, so there's a short answer here. Krista is the low-code platform that enables you to retire other apps.
Not just add apps, because we already have too many.
Exactly. So and by the way, increased automation and integration is more difficult the more apps you deploy to the desktop. So if you're currently overwhelming your employees with the average we hear of 35 to 50 apps on the corporate desktop right now, and you've got an IT department that says, hey, I got a great idea. We're going to double the number of apps we can build in the next 12 months. I've yet to hear a business leader say, you know what I really need? I need IT to give me more screens. I just have never heard it. I've definitely heard them say I need more capabilities, I need to deliver faster, I need a higher quality, all that stuff. But to say, give me more things to double click, I just can't tell you that I've ever heard that. And the hardest part is the classic ugly IT-ness of all of those apps that doesn't necessarily use the same language, jargon, doesn't necessarily navigate the same way, doesn't have because of course, dozens of different teams within IT producing dozens of apps, all landing at the desktop on folks at about the same time. The other thing that's really funny to me is, and of course we do this ourselves, but our goal of this continuous delivery idea, users resist upgrades to software, but we are trying to make upgrades 20 times a day to production. We're totally out of sync with our user community.
Right.
And this essentially is the same kind of motion as the low code problem. So we've got to recognize that Krista causes other UIs to be unnecessary. You would use, like our customers do, you would use Krista instead of deploying a CRM to the desktop, an expense management system, an order management system, a collection system, an inventory management, all of those, right? And that's a specific concrete example. You would reduce complexity on the desktop by deploying Krista. And Krista is not I have a job to do, I have to go figure out how to make an outcome happen, so I'm going to go into Krista and do step 1, and then go to another screen and do step 2, and then go to another screen and do step 3. That's not how it works. Krista owns the outcome. So when someone needs an outcome, they go to Krista and they can literally, in an English-like way, say, I need this outcome. Krista takes over the steps. Krista runs through this other systems or integrates the other people that need to be pulled in order to do that. The low-code guys have a significant problem integrating people. You would think that's not a problem of an app that it has a UI to it, but as soon as, let's say that I'm the marketing person, coordinator, and you're the director of the department, and I'm about to do something that you have to approve. If I'm in a low-code app, and I do this particular thing, and I hit the button, the back end doesn't have a way to seamlessly integrate you and I together. The best it does, typically, it generates a URL, it puts that in an email to you, hopefully you get it and you click on it, and then there's this whole thing the low-code app had to build in order to make this kind of workflow management occur.
Right.
And by the way, it's very crude versus what a real conversation would have, which is ask you, remind you a few times, and then go to the boss if you if we're running out of time to make the decision. Just that natural conversational flow that we just described is embedded inside of Krista. So what we need, and this is I think a really important point, and it doesn't get articulated very well by me often because I get into all of the other details. Organizations and the outcomes organizations have aren't actually organized into applications. Tasks are organized into applications. but outcomes are a series of tasks among people and systems. So the app isn't even the right metaphor for how to achieve an outcome. That's the
Because it's kind of
biggest.
isolated.
Exactly. That's the biggest problem. We used an example while we were sitting at this table a few minutes ago of the sales rep closes the deal, which causes apps to deploy, license keys to get generated, support systems to be updated, accounts to be created in an AR system, an invoice to be generated. Those are all different apps. What we need to think for the future of how we're going to build and transform is all of those are capabilities. But how we consume those into an automation is not via their individual UIs. That's an incredibly suboptimal way, and it assumes there are people sitting in each of those desks UIs, which is exactly not what we want. What we want is machine speed of this stuff all to get done as quick as possible. So what we want is the seamless integration of all of those backends via an automated workflow that does involve people when needed, but doesn't do it by saying, hopefully you got this email, click on this link. If that happens, and if you go into my UI that's, by the way, really pretty, and may or may not use the terminology you use, all of that kind of stuff.
Right.
So long story short, applications are not inherently good at integrating things. They're actually anti-integrating things because to the extent that the user interface, especially in the low-code platforms, is not all that good at producing back-end APIs. You're basically creating a drag on your ability to highly automate by building all those little apps. Instead, integrate all of the back-end systems capabilities, produce a single interface that exposes all of the automation to anybody by role within the organization. So a simple example, you're Scott, you sit in our marketing group. So you would never see a build notification come out, right, of the software. But you would see a release notification come out because the marketing department would get that notification. And there might be a whole series of automations that are available to you by doing that. And you would have never had to go and install app to do it. And we might add a whole set of additional capabilities inside Krista's automation framework that you could have access to, that you would never have to go find another app or go to another URL or then know that it's there or be trained on it or what have you. Inside the thing you already know, there would be the ability for you to ask questions you couldn't before, and there are visually on the screen prompts that will show you, by the way, this now is possible to do inside Krista. That's a different motion altogether, because especially if you are a part of a larger outcome, everybody ends up on their own app. That's not the model. That won't be that will not make automating that and stitching it together and executing it better more possible. It will make it less possible.